Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the June 11th coronavirus press conference, Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton said Bloomington has reported 0 positive COVID-19 cases among city employees for the 4th consecutive week. However, he confirmed that a city employee has died from COVID-19 complications.
We just learned officially, formally, of the first time that we know an employee passed away from COVID. So I do want to note that they are not identified by name out of respect, of course, and confidentiality. But in the vein of continuing to reveal that reminds us that this disease is still very much among us and can be dire. And can bring terrible consequences like that. So I just want to express our sympathy and condolences to family members, and also just a reminder, and one reason for this transparency is just to let us know at this kind of direct level that this is still a big deal, and we're not out of the woods either as a community or individuals at risk. So we want to keep working very hard on that.
Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Cottle announced that the OptumServe testing site at the National Guard Armory will be closing by June 30th. She acknowledged that the testing site played a pivotal role in bringing COVID-19 numbers down, but that the demand for testing has dropped significantly.
With vaccinations arriving and more people being vaccinated, the need for testing has dropped. In February, Optum sites were seeing about 50 people a day. In May, around 30 a day.
Cottle said it is free to get tested at the community testing site at 640 South Morton Street, which will remain open until further notice. The Bloomington Plan Commission reviewed text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance at their June 14th meeting. Development Services Manager Jackie Scanlon presented amendments made by the City Council regarding duplexes and multiplexes. She outlined changes to how many duplexes can be built each year and when developers can build them.
The first amendment is to change the dwelling duplex use to conditional from permitted in the R1, R2, and R3 zoning districts. It also added requirements so that use in those districts would be required to have a pre-submittal neighborhood meeting, and that those petitions be seen by the Board of Zoning Appeals instead of the hearing officer. So those are things you'll recall that we said we would require administratively through Scott's ability, through Director Robinson's ability to do that, but council was more comfortable codifying those. So those went into the ordinance. And then the second amendment reinstated the proposed 150-foot buffer around dwelling duplexes in the R1, R2, and R3 zoning districts that you saw with the original proposal, and then also added an annual cap of 15 approvals, again, in those 3 zoning districts for that use.
Commissioner Jillian Kinsey talked about the UDO as a living document. She identified this as an opportunity to study the effects of these amendments.
I think there are ways that we could follow the development of some of these amendments, namely the process of having a neighborhood, pre-submittal neighborhood meeting, and how the petitions are being reviewed through BZA, what kind of issues crop up, what concerns are exposed during that process.
Commissioner Brad Whistler expressed disappointment in the amendments. He worried that the limit on duplexes would ruin their effectiveness.
You know, obviously, I'm a bit disappointed in the way that this all kind of worked out. I think, you know, in order for duplexes to be something that really makes an impact in our affordable housing crisis, they need to be something that are encouraged, not just permitted under you know, limited circumstances. And I'm afraid we'll end up with the worst case scenario where very few get built, and upon review we'll look at this and say this didn't do much to help affordable housing, and that'll be used as a reason to abandon the strategy
Commissioners voted to approve the amendments 6-2, with Commissioners Chris Cockrum and Flavia Burrell dissenting. The Ellettsville Town Council discussed progress on the Envision Ellettsville plan at its June 14th meeting. Ellettsville Chamber of Commerce board member Dan Rary said the Envision Ellettsville project had finally hosted its kickoff event after a year-long delay due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. He explained that the project will help determine what the town of Ellettsville looks like as more people move in.
But what we're going to come up with is this grand vision of what we want Ellettsville to be. Part of it's branding. You know, what is Ellettsville? Who is Ellettsville? And why are people coming to Ellettsville? And we know they're coming. I mean, people are moving, residentially are moving here just left and right. And Michael's got all kinds of people wanting to come here with business and industry. So it's a plan that they'll help us put together.
Town manager Mike Farmer suggested the town council be involved in the project financially. Councilor Scott Oldham agreed. He said the council should be involved in such an important step forward for Ellettsville.
Because I think this is such an important, for want of a better word, project for not only now, but for 5, 10, 15 years from now. So I think we definitely need to be involved in that. And I think we can, I don't want to say worry about where it's coming from later because there'll have to be transfers of funds, but I think there's several opportunities here to come up with that amount of funding if the other council members see that.
The town council voted to commit to the funding unanimously. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the causes to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The Monroe County Plan Commission discussed rezoning the trails at Robertson Farm at its June 15th meeting. Petitioner Kevin Schmidt presented a plan to rezone the property from Estate Residential 1 to High Density Residential. He said the developers requested high density so they could build more diverse housing, not so that they could build more houses.
Our intent is to build a MR or less dense area with the flexibility of housing type of HR zoning. So I want to make sure that that's 100% clear. We are proposing a 3.6 lots per acre. MR allows 4.8 lots per acre. HR allows 7+ lots per acre. We are not proposing anything higher. We're actually proposing less than MR allows. So all we're asking for is to meet what we believe is a quote from the comprehensive plan saying these neighborhoods are intended to serve a growing market demand of new housing choices on a full spectrum of demographic groups. As Donnie mentioned, if we have smaller lots and larger lots, we have the ability to build houses in different price ranges, all in the area that are very low provided right now and need significant more housing to provide the demand.
Commissioner Dee Owens asked about the term, quote, attainable housing, unquote. She commented that even homes in the lower cost range will be more expensive once the houses are built and after HOA fees.
I noticed the term affordable housing is not being used, rather the term attainable housing is being used. And, you know, I see the lowest price in the plan is $250,000. When you add in the HOA fee for all of the pieces that are going to need to be covered, I think that is not all that attainable for people that we're pretending that we want to put up housing for. And then on the other end of the spectrum, this is going to take 7 years to build. In 7 years, I don't see a $475,000 house being a $475,000 house.
Commissioner Julie Thomas spoke about rural versus urban zones and said that this development crosses into the gray area between the two.
We are a rural area, and the area surrounding Bloomington is certainly not that right now. And that's something we have to continue to struggle with, is where does, you know, we have this in our comp plan, keep rural rural and urban urban. And this is one of those in-between places, and that gives me a lot of pause.
Commissioner Jim Stainbrook moved to send a negative recommendation to the county commissioners and waive a final hearing of the rezone. The motion failed 4-4, with Commissioners Jim Stainbrook, Julie Thomas, Margaret Clemens, and Dee Owens voting in support of the motion. The final hearing for the rezone will be at the July 20th meeting. Bloomington Police Chief Mike Dekoff presented 2 officer promotions to the Bloomington Board of Public Safety on June 15th. He asked that Officers Thomas Cruzman and Sean Kincaid be promoted to Senior Police Officer. Board member Luis Fuentes-Rohr asked for clarification on the promotions. He questioned Dekoff on whether these promotions were merit or time-based.
If you said it's 1 to 5 years, so it's the case that we hire a new officer within 5 years, they get promoted, or what happens if they don't get promoted? My point being, the different question, or same question, different way. Is this really a promotion or like a step forward? Is this what we do with our officers if they complete, if they're just doing their jobs, or is this really a promotion in the sense that you've earned it because you've done okay.
It's both. You can get it before 5 years if they are, for a variety of reasons. But someone just working every day doing their job at 5 years is kind of that's the next step up.
Board members voted to approve both promotions unanimously. Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Cottle presented the county's health recommendations for communal living at the June 15th Monroe County Board of Health meeting. She said the recommended occupancy for houses where all non-exempt occupants are fully vaccinated is 90%. Cottle highlighted one major change over the need to quarantine entire houses.
And then the last changes were in number 13. The Monroe County Health Department does not anticipate the need to quarantine entire facilities when members achieve a high rate of COVID-19 vaccination. Residents and staff are expected to comply with IU testing protocols, case investigations, contact tracing, and isolation or quarantine protocols as needed. Isolation and quarantine will be managed on an individual case basis unless there's a need to expand quarantine based on a high level of infection or susceptibility within a facility.
Board member Dr. Robert Wren asked what the Board of Health would do if Indiana University is not able to require students and staff members to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Monroe County Commissioner of Health, Dr. Thomas Sharp, suggested they should have to pay for testing out of pocket.
My suggestion would be, if you don't want to get vaccinated, well, you have to get tested twice a week. It'll cost you $200 per time, payable in advance. And if you don't pay it, then you're out of the university, or you're off the staff. If you don't want to get, that's fine, but you got to pay your way, because IU paid over $10 million to do the mitigation testing. And I don't think that's at this point, if you're just not getting vaccinated, I don't think you deserve that privilege of having someone else pay your bill.
Board members voted to support the regulations unanimously. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
there for me every day,
believing in me,
showing me what's possible,
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body.
To say I can rather than I can't.
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
To finish school.
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner.
With you in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to Cats Week. At its June 16th meeting, the Bloomington City Council resumed discussion on occupancy affidavits. Director of Bloomington Housing and Neighborhood Development, John Zodi, presented changes made to a resolution that would require tenants and their landlords to sign an affidavit confirming that the number of residents meets occupation limits. He said the ordinance would no longer require landlords to file the affidavit with hand to avoid privacy issues.
If it were submitted to the department, it's subject to public records requests, which we don't want to compromise the confidentiality of any tenants on a general scale. So if we have to request one for an over-occupancy investigation, or if an inspector requested one at the inspection and it wasn't provided, the landlord or property manager would need to send it in later. In that case, we would have affidavits on file at the office, but not en masse. And so we feel that respects the privacy issue a little better.
Resident Jordan Evans spoke in opposition to the resolution. As the president of the Monroe County Apartment Association, he said he believes the resolution addresses a problem that does not exist in Bloomington.
It has been claimed that there is an over-occupancy in Bloomington. No data has been presented to support this assertion, and in the past 3 years, no ordinance violation cases have been filed alleging that a landlord or tenant over-occupied a property. A review of U reports over the last 3 years reveal only 15 complaints submitted alleging over-occupancy. Of those, 3 were found to be invalid complaints, 6 were complaints about unregistered rentals. So that gives you the final number of 6 over 3 years. With approximately 29,000 rental permits issued in Bloomington, this means that less than 0.001% of rental units are subject to over occupancy complaints per year.
Councilmember Susan Sandberg supported the resolution. She argued that the low number of over-occupancy cases is because of the efforts of Bloomington's hand department.
It may be rare, and that's a good thing, because part of having a strong hand department that regulates rental properties is that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing for the city of Bloomington. And so for traditional reasons and also what we're dealing with currently, I very strongly support this and would encourage the support of the rest of council. Thank you.
Council members voted to approve the resolution 5-3, with Council members Isabel Piedmont Smith, Kate Rosenbarger, and Matt Flaherty dissenting. The City Council will now enter its summer recess and reconvene for its next regular session on July 21st. The Monroe County Commissioners discussed installing broadband internet in southern Monroe County. At the June 16th meeting, County Attorney Jeff Cockerell introduced an ordinance that would offer tax exemptions to internet service providers to encourage them to improve the area's infrastructure. He said it's hard to put a dollar amount on the importance of broadband internet.
It's a little bit difficult to determine the value of a broadband to a home in monetary numbers. I think over the past year and a half with the school systems and everything, that there is a lot of value in broadband that isn't necessarily easy to put a dollar figure on.
Commissioner Penny Githens clarified that providers would need to have infrastructure set up within 5 years. Smithville COO Dave Broden said he expects homes will have access to upgraded service in 12 to 18 months. The commissioners approved the ordinance unanimously. Library Director Marilyn Wood talked about loosening COVID-19 restrictions at the June 16th meeting of the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees. She announced that both library branches would be returning to normal hours on June 21st and that both libraries will be open at full capacity on June 26th. Board member Jamie Burkhart asked if virtual programming would continue. Wood said virtual programs are already scheduled through the summer.
We are continuing with virtual programming through this summer. We already have several of those in place, and then we'll be reviewing it as we move forward in the fall. There will certainly be more in-person programming, we hope, beginning around September or so. But there has been a fair amount of happiness and hopes that we will continue some of the programming that's virtual. So we're going to evolve.
Wood said that MCPL hopes to return to some in-person programming, but that virtual programming is something the library wants to continue to develop. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.